I'm going to welcome you all here as a representative of St. Louis University. My name is Gary Ritter. I'm the Dean of the School of Education. I'm thrilled that you all made time to show up here. The St. Louis University School of Education and the Office of the Vice President for Research are pleased to introduce Dr. Kacy Seals-Shahid, who will share insights tonight from her new book, Know Your Place, Run Your Race. Dr. Shahid is presenting here in the beautiful, I'm going to do this for just a minute, Pierre Marquette Room, where we've got students, faculty, and staff joining us in person, and we're also lucky enough to have students, faculty, and staff, and alumni joining us from outside on Zoom. So thank you and welcome. I'm not going to tell you much about Dr. Shahid's story in my short introduction. She will tell her compelling story far better than I can. As an introduction, though, I will simply share with you my experience of Dr. Kacy Seals-Shahid, which have always been uplifting, life-giving, and at the same time, consistently challenging us here in the School of Education to figure out how we can do a better job, push ourselves harder to work on behalf of kids in our city. That's our job. When we first met, I asked Kacy, hey, we're thinking of creating a new master's curriculum to better prepare teachers to work with students in our city. And she dove right in full force. Now she's teaching in the program that her guidance helped us design. Later on, I said, Kacy, we'd love for you to teach some of our undergrads if you have time. She dove in, she teaches a class, and students love the class that she teaches. They look forward to it. Earlier this year, I asked Kacy, can you help with our beginning of the 2021 year School of Education retreat? It's been a tough 2020, of course. It's been a tough beginning of 2021. And I'd really like to figure out a way for our retreat to set a positive and aspirational and challenging tone to start the year. She dove in, she drove out all the way to the Jesuit retreat house on the Mississippi and challenged our School of Education team with a rousing call to action. She did not disappoint. In fact, her boss, St. Louis Public Schools Superintendent Kelvin Adams, drove all the way out to watch Kacy speak. He said he did not want to miss the opportunity to see one of his best principals speak. And now, fortunately for all of us, we don't have to miss the opportunity. We have the opportunity to hear from her. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Kacy Seals-Shahid.
Thank you very much, Gary. I feel very regal right now, kind of Michelle Obama-ish, Oprah. Thank you for that introduction. Good evening, St. Louis University School of Education, community members, students, staff, our virtual guests. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here tonight. I do not take this opportunity lightly to share with you. I'm going to say what God put upon my heart, because if it was up to me, I probably would not have written a book for educators. Why? Oh, I'm glad you asked. You are the most critical group of individuals that I've ever been around. So educators can be critical in a good way, of course, but we notice everything. We're very detail oriented, and that's a good thing and that's a bad thing. So for 20 years, I pondered and I was nervous to share. But I want to start off with a phrase from Paul Laurence Dunbar. We wear the mask that grins and lies. And I'll stop right there, because we wear the mask figuratively and literally right now. And we've worn them so well as educators. And when I say educators, I'm speaking about my higher ed individuals. I'm speaking about if you're a student in the education program, you are an educator right now. I'm speaking to current educators, and even those who were parents at home during COVID and doing virtual learning. You were educators standing with us. So in essence, I'm talking to everybody. We have worn these masks to hide the real truths of who we are. So for 20 plus years, I've been in education. And when I started, I was a substitute teacher. At that time, I had just had my oldest daughter. I won't tell you her age, but she's a young adult right now. And by the way, my children, one is a young adult, the other two are teenagers. They miss me so much right now. And whenever I'm away from them, they just miss me so much. I'll be home soon. I'll be home. Mwah, just stand by. And now if you're a teenager, you know they don't miss me. But when I started as a substitute teacher. I had no idea that 20 years later, I'll be standing in a room of educators. It was honestly a move that I made to just care for my child. I said, I'll substitute for a moment until I decided what I truly wanted to do, kind of professionally. That was over 21 years ago. And I stand here today very honored to share my story. Why did I write the book? So the book is entitled Know Your Place, Run Your Race, Meaningful Nuggets for Educators Willing to Be Resilient Leaders. Why did I write the book? Before I start, let me just say what's buzzing right now. And that is educators are not well. Educators are languishing or feeling blah. Educators are somewhere hanging on, dangling by a little string. We're barely hanging on. That means all of us, because didn't I say we're all educators? So then the question is, well, why did you write this book at a time when educators aren't even well? And you believe that you have some nuggets to share with these not so well educators that's going to help them. When I wrote the book, it was pre-COVID. I completed the book, or I started the book pre-COVID, and I completed it during the COVID, during this virtual learning process. Probably the scariest thing that I've ever done. Remember, I was writing for educators. Remember, I'm an educator who wore the mask. What mask did you wear, Dr. Shahid? I wore the mask that said everything was great all the time. I wore the mask that says I'm principal of the year once, twice, probably 2 or 3 times. I am the best principal in the city of St. Louis and the surrounding regional area, and no one challenged me. I wore that mask very, very well. I did not ever admit when things weren't going well at home. Who was I going to tell? My staff? Oh, the students, my colleagues. So I wore that mask that everything's great. I'm good. And that first year as a principal, so I'm gonna skip from substitute teacher. So I was substitute teacher for 6 years. Let me go back some. Substitute teacher for 6 years. And I was in an accelerated principal program called the New Leaders Program. I was in the first cohort where I had the opportunity to work alongside some great leaders in St. Louis Public School District. And that's how I was able to fast forward into the principalship. My first assignment was an assistant principal at the school where I was a substitute teacher. Now you do the math on that. I was substitute teacher, and then within 6 years, I am now the assistant principal. I don't think they like me too well. Reflecting back on that, they said things like, she's a bull in a China store. And I'm like, what is that? What picture it? A bull? And they said, oh, she's an overachiever. I am? And I began to feel heavy with those comments until I realized I'm going to wear it well. Like, I'll be the bull in the China store. What they were really saying is that she strives for excellence. And she wants the best for her students in the classroom, and she's going to want the best for us. And so we're going to have to be on our best. After 1 year of being an assistant principal, I was promoted to a principal of the New Leaders, of the Big Picture School in St. Louis, Missouri, modeled after the Big Picture Learning Model out of Providence, Rhode Island. So it was a non-traditional school in a traditional school district. I led that school for 4 years. And as a first year principal, guys, you don't understand. It was so serious for me. I made sure I had a cup of coffee at every principal meeting because I wanted to look mature and I wanted to look the part. And you were not going to say that I didn't know what I was doing. So I had that cup of coffee, right? And I'm walking, I'm wearing my suit. I'm just overdoing it. I'm just doing way too much. And I'm not even admitting that I was doing nothing right. I remember there was a time, and I wrote this in the book, I called my staff, and it was a dramatic moment, right? And I'm like, we need to see these kids the same way. I don't know if you saw the movie Precious. If you haven't, Google it, but the book was entitled Push, and we're reading this book, and it describes this Black girl, heavy set. She had a body odor. She used profanity. The book was hard to read within the first few pages, and my staff said, I just can't read this book. And I said, if you can't read this book, then you can't see the students that we serve. There was a chair on top of the table. I knocked the chair down for dramatic effect. And I scared the heck out of everybody. They were like, we do not want to work here. Like, we quit. I mean, because I startled them. Now, what was I trying to prove? I just really wanted them to know, like, you can get this. And I'm going to make sure, because I'm overly zealous principal, first year principal. I had no strategies, really. I just was passionate. I had a compelling story, but I lacked strategy. And when that chair fell, you should have saw how many people jumped. I thought I was winning. I'm like, I got him. they're going to come back the next day and they're going to give it their all. No, one lady quit like 2 weeks later. It's too much. So I wore that mask, and no one knew when I went back to my office, when she turned in her letter of resignation, the tear fell. The tear fell because I realized how much my role played probably in her decision. And it was at that moment that I realized I cannot keep leading like this. Leadership from fear was not working. That was not going to work. I think I saw that in a movie, Lean on Me. That didn't work for me. I don't want to be Joe Clark. That only worked in the movie. So what I realized quickly as a second and third year teacher was to be honest. And I remember telling the staff, that was an epic fail. And I probably should not have done that. I'm not even a fighter. I don't know why I knocked that chair over. And I'm sorry if I scared you all. But let's come to the table and let's, work as a team. And that was probably year 2 and year 3. And I stopped staying after work so late. I would be at work late, 6:30, 7 o'clock. I had to be there, checking my email, cleaning my office, doing nothing. That I could have went home while the sun was still out and still been a fabulous teacher. So today, Dr. Shahid leaves when the sun is up. Dr. Shahid delegates to her team, and I trust them. And if you don't believe me, you ask them. And I trust them to, building that leadership capacity is critical to my success, because if the school falls apart when I'm gone, that's a problem. As educators, why did I write the book? Because I wanted that leader to know that there was hope, that if you share your story the same way I'm telling a little bit of who I am as a school leader, and I took away the principal of the year. Like, that sound good. I won principal of the year, best principal in St. Louis, get on my level. You could never. I'm like Muhammad Ali of education. But the reality was it was hard work. And I changed it to hard work. It was draining. It was challenging. As a teacher, everyone liked me. I was like fabulous. All the students liked me. I was their favorite. They thought I was one of them. They're like, are you a teenager? I'm glad you asked, but I'm not. And when I became principal, I tried that. I'm like, I know you think I'm a teenager. Like, no, we don't. And they were like, roll their eyes. Like, you're the principal. And that title of principal wasn't so glamorous when you're doing the right thing. That title of principal was actually very challenging. I wrote the book because I wanted those school leaders to know not everyone will like you, but remember what brought you to the profession. I wrote the book because I wanted those future leaders, aspiring principals, to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And most importantly, I wrote the book for those teachers and those educators who are feeling blah and burnt out and languishing, because they're somewhere in the middle. And it was so fitting, although I wasn't thinking about this moment today when I completed the book, that teachers and educators were holding on by a little string right now. The momentum is different. When we were on virtual, I remember my colleagues saying, things are really slow. What are you doing? I'm not doing much. What are you doing? Well, and then we went to this place of, I got all this virtual learning is just getting the best of me. We felt the momentum of reading everything, doing everything online, because we weren't doing everything online. There was no pen to paper. Our introverted students took over our classes. They're doing everything in the chat. They had a lot to say. And when I would virtually observe, I'm like, who is this student? Oh, that was the quiet student, but they were taken over virtually. You all noticed that? And our extroverted students were struggling. And extroverted teachers and leaders were struggling. And then somewhere we got used to the pace. Somewhere we're like, this isn't so bad. It's going to be and then I'm going to come down and I could do my laundry in between. And then I'm going to come back, and during asynchronous time, we were working out in between and doing things. And at least I was, maybe that was just me. I did laundry. And then when we came back into our building, it was a small group of students. We had about less than 100 kids. We were so happy to see them. We're like, hi, kids. Yes, we're so happy to see you. It's okay that you're late to class. We're just happy that you're here. And that was all spring semester. And then when they came back in the fall, you all 400 plus of my students, the momentum changed again. I mean, I'm like, well, oh, that was the bell. Wait a minute. And so we have to adjust. We're not quite there yet. We're not even a full 2 months in this new school year, and we're still adjusting. No more doing laundry in between observing the classroom. No more leaving work casually. Now I got to rush. Now there's traffic. So what do we do now? So you heard this whole idea of reimagining schools. Oh, this is a great time to reimagine schools. We can co-create and design what we want now. So the question I have, did we miss that mark? Why are we blah? Why are we languishing? If we can recreate and reimagine schools, why didn't we do that? We should have anticipated some things. Students were, if we were kind of moving real lax and casual, don't you think the students were too? They were sleeping during your classes. Cameras off, sleeping. All you saw was an avatar. And now we're like, if you're in a high school, most of your classes are 90-minute blocks. So we went from this asynchronous, synchronous 45 minutes to a 90-minute block in person, pay attention, pen to paper. Some classes might still, require virtual or technology. Mass all day long and pay attention to me, because there's been a learning loss and we got to move. There's a sense of urgency. We have no time to waste. And that change in momentum and mindset is where we are right now. But I say to you all this evening, give yourself grace. Give yourself grace, because who are you comparing yourself to? Know your place, run your race. If you're not a sprinter, why are you trying to sprint? You're a marathon runner. Matter of fact, you speed walk. You're not even a sprinter. So you didn't train for that. You have to know where your skill set lies, where your strengths lies. We are comparing ourselves to life before this virtual learning. I was a great teacher. All my students loved me. I got all my lesson plans done every Sunday night, and I checked all of my papers by Tuesday. And if you are a student, you compared yourself to life before COVID as well. I had my routines down packed. I would go to Starbucks on Monday. I would go study in between every other class. Well, that doesn't happen now because things have changed, and maybe the Starbucks you can't even sit in person now. There's all kind of, detours that we've had to take and switch gears. It doesn't mean that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. It means we have to adjust. I asked you to go back to what brought you into the field of education. I asked you to go back to what you love about being an educator. So you say, I'm not really a teacher, Dr. Shahid, doesn't apply to me. You might be a counselor. You might be a social worker. You might be an aspiring teacher. So if you do not remember what brought you in the field of education, you're going to tap out before Christmas. Some of you already, you're like, I'm tapped out right now. Just called in to work yesterday. It's okay. It's okay to make the adjustments. But who are we hurting in the end? Because there is a Kacy in your classroom, because 14-year-old Kacy was in between homes. That was a lie. 14-year-old Kacey was homeless. Because in between homes sound like I was between my dad's house and my mom's house. And no, I was homeless. So my family and I moved from place to place wherever we could. And from 6th grade to 9th grade, we moved 10 times. There were times when we did not have electricity. I don't have to make a story up or tell you someone else's hardship story. I can tell you my own. School was my refuge. School was my safe place. I went to Central Visual and Performing Arts Middle School. I went to Central Visual and Performing Arts High School. Yes, you heard it right. I am principal of Central Visual and Performing Arts. I've made a full circle move, and that is only by the grace of God. Why did I write the book? You don't keep a story like that to yourself, because 14-year-old Kacy had no idea that she would be an educator and that her story truly mattered. And the nights when I sat up and I said, why me? Why can't my mom be normal and come home and cook dinner and we have a and I smell the aroma of food, and the house is clean, and there's laundry, and I do my homework at the table, why couldn't I have a normal life, is what 14-year-old Kacey said. Why is my mom addicted to crack cocaine? Why are we living from place to place? Why are we boiling water for hot water? Why are we waiting for the first of the month to get some new clothes? Why am I pretending around my friends at school like I have it all together? Why have I been told not to tell the school my business? Why didn't the school call when I missed 20 days of school in the 7th grade? And why didn't someone come to the house where we were staying to see why I missed 20 days of school? How was I still an honor roll student with all of this going on? What was so special about Kacy? Kacy had teachers. Kacy had a village, unbeknownst to her, that was believing in her. They knew her by name. They didn't judge her. It was teachers who cared about students, and I was one of them. And I could be myself at my school. They didn't care that we were living from place to place. They didn't care that my mom was a private duty nurse. Okay, that was a lie. She was a maid. You see the lies that we wear? We wear the mask that grins and lies. Whatever story I want to tell is what you'll believe. That is the story that educators, we put on this facade. Students, if you just follow what I've asked you to do, but we're broken on the inside, our family lives are all a mess, but we're telling students what to do. I'm not suggesting that you tell your whole personal business to your students, not at all. But I am suggesting that you remember who you are, know yourself first and foremost. We won't get past this facade. You might call it, if you're a young person, the imposter syndrome. I say it's you're just lying. I say we're wearing these masks because we can put on the facade, and we put it on very well, and especially the doctors in the room. And we are very poised, and no one questions us, especially the teachers. No one questions what we do when we leave work. But if we can take away the mask, and if we can stand in our truth, and our truth, only you know your truth. And the question becomes, why? Why did, when I think about 14-year-old Kacy, why did all that happen? Because God knew that one day I would be sitting in the place that I'm in right now as a school leader. So many of my students, I can identify with them just from an honest standpoint, I can identify. I may not always share my personal story with the students, but I definitely can empathize with what they're going through. And it makes me make my decisions based on my most marginalized students, because I was one of them. I'm not afraid to have courageous conversations with staff about the students, because I was one of them. And I know what happens when it takes, all you need is one educator, one somebody to believe in you. And I spent more time with my teachers than I did with my mom. She was working 24 hours a day with a family in Ladue, while I stayed in a boarding house. So I was with Mr. Dew, Miss Bradford, Miss Weber, Miss Trice. I was with those people more than I was with her. So they became like a home away from home. And they believed in me, and they gave me opportunities to fail, opportunities to get it right. And we have that same opportunity right now in front of us. We can either hold on to this idea that we're languishing, that we're blah, that we're barely hanging on. And don't get me wrong, we have some true challenges right now. Or we can push up our sleeves, and we can do what I call heart work. Heart work is not comfortable. It doesn't feel good. But if you pull back the layers of the onion, there is a Kacey standing right there in the middle. Pull back the data, the test scores, the things that probably on the surface is bigger than that. Kacey was bigger than a test score. The test scores didn't show you what I was doing at home. You didn't know that I signed my own parent permission slip forms. Why do I say all of this? Because those are the students that are probably you're spending more time within your office if you're a school leader. If you're a teacher, you're spending more time redirecting those students because they're seeking attention, your attention, or they're being disruptive because they can. Again, it goes back to attention. They're getting a laugh because they can. They lack those social skills because maybe there's no one to teach them. Guess whose job it is now? Yours. You're it. Guess who can make a difference? You can. Future teachers, current teachers, parents as teachers, counselors, school leaders. We're not exempt. Education is everybody's business. And so I wrote the book to give educators, especially millennial educators, to novice teachers, to aspiring school leaders, hope. We are not the little train that couldn't. I didn't get it. I think I'm like Muhammad Ali of education, kind of like Beyonce of education, at the top of the chain, you know? So I'm not like the little train, I think I can. I think if I just get the little bit of, no, we will walk with our heads up high and be proud. We make every profession possible. The School of Education makes all other departments possible. Well, not like that, but you know what I'm saying? We make, like we should be chanting, like we should be at the, if there's an organizational chart, School of Education should be at the top. There's no reason why educators should feel like I'm just an educator. Somebody says, what do you do for a living? I'm just an educator. No, I am the best educator in the St. Louis metropolitan area. I dare you to say it. Who's going to challenge you? They're going to say, well, what makes you the best? Because I said it. They'll like roll their eyes at you, but they'll get over it. And then guess what? They'll start believing you start believing it, and you end up being the best. And our young people will benefit from it. Remember, there's a Kacy that needs it. She needs you to be the best. So she now has a model. I want to be like her. I want to be like him. I think I'm the best. I mean, we don't need this. I'm just high class. Remember me? No. Students, I am here today. We are going to make it. Even though we have longer days now because we're checking papers and maybe our planning period was taken from us because we had to cover a class because a teacher was gone, or all of the things that could happen in a school is happening right now. There's a lot of fights that's occurring right now in our schools. That's a sign of a toxic school culture. Someone said, well, what's going on in your building? Why aren't they fighting? I am blessed to work with a team of teachers and adults who thought forward and planned, and we really truly reimagined what was going to happen when our students came back. And we created a creative schedule to kind of anticipate that after about 45 minutes, students will get antsy. We also said, I said as a leader that I will work on culture and climate every single day. What does that look like? It doesn't mean we have an assembly every single day, but it means as a leader, I'm visible. I'm so visible, I hear everything that I don't even want to hear. Like, I can't believe I heard that. Students, let's go. Move out the hallways. I heard that. And they're like, why are you right here? Because I'm everywhere now. Because I want to hear them. I want to be, I'm creating the culture that I want. I'm in the cafeteria, I'm in the hallways, in the classrooms. If I was a teacher in the classroom, and I'm a teacher here at St. Louis University, which I too have to worry about engagement, student engagement. That requires us to plan and think about our population. Our generation that we're serving at St. Louis University is generation what? Gen Z, not the baby boomers. So why are we teaching as if our population are the baby boomers? Gen Z is highly tech savvy, you all. They are halfway paying attention to you. They have tuned you out after 30 minutes, and they're probably on their devices somewhere. They're sneaky with it. That's just one. They're very skilled. So know your population. I want to conclude with So I didn't tell you everything about the book because I hope that you would go to my website, drkacyshahid.com, and purchase the book. And if not, that's fine. And I will hope to have in-depth conversations about the book for those who would like to get it and have a conversation about it. But I want to conclude with, in essence, Booker T. Washington said, success should be measured not by the position that one has reached in life, but by the obstacles which he or she has overcome while trying to succeed. I share my personal story, not for sympathy. I share my personal story as an example of someone who is standing transparent and authentically as I can so that I can encourage other leaders to do the same. You say, I'm not a school leader, but you're a leader in your classroom. You're a leader in your home. So everyone is a leader in my book. Literally in my book, you're a leader. And if that is the case, when you share your story, and whatever that story is and however you choose to share it, opportunities are unlimited. You remove the mask that you've been wearing, and it's almost like a weight is lifted and you can lead from a place where people can receive you. So I conclude and I stop there. At this time, I would like to take questions either from the chat or in person. So if there's someone in the chat, if you have questions, please do ask. I'm going to stay right here and not move around. But if you have a question, if you raise your hand and just speak loudly and I can repeat it. Not all at once. Yes. How are we greeting students and welcoming students who have not been in a building in a year and a half? Very intentional and understanding that they have not been in our building. So I have two groups of students, my freshmen and my sophomores, who have not been in the building. We already know this. And so we almost know that in my mind, it's going to take them at least 2 months to understand routines and procedures. So again, giving grace, giving a whole lot of patience, building some authentic relationships. And that takes time. And it's not on the surface relationship. Say, hey, how's it going? Great. Thank you. Bye. It's really listening and amplifying student voices. If you're a teacher, that is maybe having class meetings and allowing students an opportunity to talk, and you listen. You listen, they talk. Not defensive, not justifying, not just listen. It's something we don't do in education because we are the sage on the stage and I'm the great teacher and you're the little student. No, we have to remove that. So I think it's that patience, whether it's at the university level, whether it's K-12, that we listen from an authentic place and understanding that they have not been in school for a year and a half. So some of the routines, it's almost like you have to teach them what it is to be a student. But I would say, I would caution you, because what is a good student? Was it the image that we had in our minds before this pandemic? Or do we learn that a student I can have my phone out and still focus and still pay attention, or I can maybe work in groups and talk, and it could be organized noise and it be okay. And so we have to know what that looks like and what we're comfortable with. You're welcome. Yes. Okay, so the question was, what are some things I would like to see researchers researching as it relates to education in this topic? Two that come to mind, and that is the power of amplifying student voice. What happens when in organizations, whether it be school, at the university level, down to the classroom, when students have the opportunity to elevate their voices? What does the research say about that? And then the second one is building leadership capacity among teachers. So how do you promote teacher leaders, and what does the research say about promoting teacher leaders and giving them that opportunity to build that leadership capacity. My thought says that it improves your organization tremendously because you have these teachers who now see themselves as leaders. And so they give 150% versus I'm just a little bitty teacher. No, I'm a teacher leader and I'm proud of my, job. And I want to help I want to help, and help with those decisions as opposed to criticizing way back here, but I'm at the table and I want to be a part of this decision making. So that's what I'm thinking. Those are the two that come to mind. You're welcome. Yes. How do you cultivate a leadership relationship with parents? Okay. Everything that I just said, being transparent with boundaries. And so when I say with boundaries, that's even with students. When you're talking to students and staff and parents, you want to be careful. I remember one of my teachers said, guess what? I told the students how I spent the weekend drinking all weekend. No. You don't want to tell them that. I'm not saying be that transparent. It's not their business what you do personally. But I think being transparent is maybe letting, saying what you don't know. So if I'm Dr. Seals-Shahid, who I don't know something. Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm quick at, I don't know, maybe you can help me. So that's even a parent being able to thought partner with parents, bringing them to the table. So parent teacher organizations can look totally different when we bring them to the table as thought partners versus you're the organization over here and this is a school and sorry, but this is how we do business here. But if they're at the table and they can thought partner with us, they're a part of it. So now parents feel included. In fact, they were our partners doing virtual learning and they still are. So why wouldn't they be at the table? So I think the way that I continue to build those relationships is through transparency. A lot of my parents have judged me just at the look and will think that I cannot understand. And I may not tell them my whole entire story, but I once had a parent says, I bet you know nothing about being homeless. You all, I almost passed out. And I had to tell her, please don't let this dress and the title fool you. I know way more than what you think about being homeless. And I don't know what I projected to make her think that I could not understand, but that was a teachable moment where we both sat and I was able to share with that particular parent. That's rare, but it does happen. And I didn't mind telling her that I was homeless because I didn't like being judged, but those are things that happen. But if you can find a leader who can be honest and transparent, I think you're going to find stronger relationships with parents, stronger relationships with students, and stronger relationships with staff. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so knocking the chair down and leading from this spirit of fear did not work for me. I don't know that it worked. I think that fear works temporarily with people because out of fear, they begin to make decisions and do things because they want to please a leader. For me, what worked, again, it goes back, I'm not saying anything new, we thought partner. So I truly believe in the whole concept of a team approach. So even though I am principal, I really don't make any decisions without my leadership team. I bring it to them. We talk about it. I bring situations to my staff. Some situations I definitely have to make decisions on without anyone. And then there are decisions of where I can include my staff, I will, because I value their opinion that much. And remember this whole idea of amplifying student voices, I even value the voices of the students, which I've not always brought them to the table. So even knowing what do you want as students, in your case, being over a department where people are truly hurting and people are really feeling weighted, because that's a real thing and challenges are real in our space. I think what we don't talk about is mental health and how do you get help for that. So and how do you, how do you get help for your social and emotional self? And we will say self-care, take a self-care day. But what did you really do and what is really going on? And maybe that's not for us to assess, but if a person received professional help and then we not judge that and we not hold that against them, but that you create a space where staff are comfortable with what's going on, because sometimes it's bigger than the workplace. It is, I'm having a problem with my partner. It is, we're having financial difficulties. It is, I've been trying to lose weight and I can't, so I'm disappointed with myself. It is, the list can go on and on. My children are not listening to me. Or I have a mentally ill child at home. I have a pet that is dying. These are real scenarios. And that pet, I've had this, this is my baby. I've had my cat for 15 years. And so how do you truly support those individuals in that time? It's going to require listening. That is hard for most leaders. We are problem solvers by nature. We're like, I'll help you. Let me try to, no, they don't need our help. They need us to listen. They may need opportunities to, like that time to reflect. And that could look like, instead of a long staff meeting, maybe shortening your meetings and maybe only having meetings when you need to. That's just one strategy. That is offering benefit services. So if your organization has a benefit service line where they can get maybe therapy, I will offer that. It could be a organizational team movement. Like, let's track our steps. So we're incorporating physical health. It could be where you have a peace room. So we have a peace room in my school, and that room is designed for students, but we also within our staff room have 2 massage chairs. I give them permission to go and sit in the massage chair on their planning period. And so creating a space that you want, and we can relax our organization. Some of our organizations are tight, just like we're tightly wound, and our organization will reflect us. So if you kind of want to know what's going on with your team, you might want to look at self. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow. You're like, I'm not tightly wound. You probably are. You're a leader. You might be type A. And most type A, everything has to be in order. And when it's not, we lose it. And so how do you adjust when that happens? We relax and we say things like, it's okay. 5 minutes late, it's okay. Copier didn't work, didn't have my meeting notes. Technology is not working. My PowerPoint didn't work. It's okay. Sometimes we have to give ourselves permission to say it's okay. And we give that permission to our team to say it's okay. And we listen and we ask them, what do you need? What can I do to support you? They'll tell you. Now, we can't, give them everything, but I think, if your team members are reasonable, we can surely do that. I create fun. I try to anyway. If my staff are listening, I'm sorry, guys. I thought when we went bowling, and we would do like human foosball. Now I'm struggling to find fun with a mask and social distancing. And so we're struggling. So my ideal fun is staff meeting is shortened, and they're like, yes. But I have that one staff member who's like, I rearranged my babysitter and I plan on being here for 30 minutes. And I cannot believe that she canceled it early. So you got to take into account, not everybody will enjoy the things that you're offering. But again, we can't please everybody. And in the book, I even talk about everyone won't like you because they don't like themselves. Remember, this all goes back to self. How I'm feeling about me shows up in my classroom, shows up in how I lead, shows up in my relationships. I know it's kind of, I gave you like multiple pieces to that, but I don't think it's a one, like 2 or 3 answers that I can give you. I think it's kind of a feel. But mainly listening. Yes. Yep. First thing I look at is self-efficacy. You can see a person's confidence. That's that confidence that the way you walk into the room. You see that? Okay. Versus this. I'm here for the interview. That person walking into a classroom, students will not receive that person very well. So that confidence, it shows up even before the interview. So I look for someone who's confident. I also look for someone who is relatable. That means the ability to relate, not that you have to share the same experiences as your students, but are you relatable? I do a lot of small talk to gauge that. How's it going? How's it going question can lead to in all different directions. Sometimes a question like, so what are you reading now? It lets me know what you prioritize. And you might say, I'm reading Stephen King's book. And I might say, okay, this person is probably a detailed person, like suspense, drama, probably serious in nature. I could use them. That relatability is big. Self-confidence is huge. The content is the least on the list because you can teach yourself the content, and the content, it switches. We thought you're going to teach algebra. You're going to now teach geometry. I know you taught algebra for the last 5 years, but you're smart. You'll learn geometry. Most teachers are smart, so they can learn that part. But that ability to be relatable, that ability to build authentic relationships is critical and is key. And that comes from, if you're a student right now and you're listening, I would work on it right now in class. Like, how likely are you to have a conversation with a stranger? How likely are you to be relatable with someone that you just met? Because you're going to meet these students who you don't know, and you got to build a relationship. How do you do that if you haven't done it before? So try building relationships with a 5-minute conversation. What did you get in a 5-minute conversation? I can learn so much about a person in 5 minutes. I can know where they live, where they're from, what school they went to, all these questions, because I'm trained to kind of ask those questions. So I would start training myself to have meaningful, small, short conversations. And that is a good way to build relationships. And listen, you don't want to ask and you're like ready for your next question, but you're not really paying attention. Your question should build upon what they said because you were really listening, and you're listening authentically, listening. That would be my advice. Confidence. Can you teach someone how to be confident? Yes, there's a mirror in your home and you're going to practice. Hi there. Hi there, gorgeous. Hi there. How are you? I'm fine. And practice in the mirror. I know there's a practice talking, smiling. We can read eyes with masks. We know, talk with your mask on so people can see your eyes. What are your eyes saying? What is your body language saying? This says I'm nervous. If I have my arms crossed, I'm closed off. Nervous. You make the other person nervous. You're like, stand over there. All of a sudden, I don't want to be around you. But when you can relax, it's in the body, it's in the body, it's in the shoulders, relax the shoulders, you smile while you're talking, even though I could be really, really nervous, you won't tell because I'm looking very happy. So it's something about a happy person that says I'm not nervous. So practice, and not to be disingenuous or fake, but just practice real natural, introducing yourself with a smile or giving, face or giving eyes. Some people do their hair. Don't do too much of that though, because that could be annoying, but you want to just look relaxed. If there's water, drink it around people. Excuse me, drink water. Yes, and then finish your conversation. It sounds real basic, but it's things that people have a hard time doing. Any more questions? All right. Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure again. And I was a marketing teacher, so I must say this. If you have not purchased a book, please go to Kacys.com where you can purchase a book. I also have a QR code over there. Thank you so much for listening. And if you would like to thought partner with us at Central Vision Performing Arts or even at SLU, you can reach us. We're all on the website. Thank you so much, you all. It was a pleasure.